Bourke. I'm Managing Director of Mobext, which is part of Havas, so we're a very large worldwide media group. And as I said today, I'm going to talk to you about some approaches to mobile, which are some methods that we use to help our clients deal with change of pace in the mobile world, which a lot of them talk about. So I just want to start really going back a bit. So for a short period, in the second half of the 20th century, ad agencies changed the world. They did more than sell stuff. They actually signified changes in society and politics. They were very successful at doing that. This is a very interesting point when we think about where mobile sits now, how we look at mobile. They established themselves as the modernist aesthetic, and they managed to attract some very bright, talented people. And they built some templates that we all recognise and know. And those templates have been very successful and have been used up until now. We'll go through a few of those. So they gave us the media sales kit, a very successful tool. Get out there and actually sell media space and actually show you how to actually plan and build media. They came up with the concept of the dynamic duo, the art director and copywriter, producing ideas and delivering ideas to market. The idea of doc and files that you can share and actually across the globe, on globalization. They give us the suit, keep the talent away from the client. Let's have a suit that actually talks to the client about the business and the business models. They give us the purchase funnel, very effective funnel being used for a long time until very recently. And what did they make? They made campaigns. They basically made compelling stories. That's what they did. And they made stories that actually built brands on the back of them. But they were really good at storytelling and narrative and creativity. But that model is now dead in our current world. Not a very nice picture, I know. We've seen too many changes now in terms of technology and the impact of technology on behaviour for that model to remain relevant. This is a really interesting atlas of the world, and it's a group of hackers who hacked in over 24 hours to open ports on people's computers. So you get an idea of the connectivity of the globe just from that, from hackers hacking into people's into their ports and looking at their IP addresses. And we can see connectivity is completely changing the rules. New media is changing the rules. We move from one-to-one communications, one-to-many, to many-to-many. Text, chat, social media. We have new conversation routes, so now we have the same thing, many-to-many, one-to-many, few-to-many, etc., etc. When we start to look at that, and we start to look at the way technology now to have lots of conversations, we get into hyper-complexity. We start to look at the more connections we have, the more conversations we have, the more complex it gets as a communication operator. And the audience talk back. They now use the same tools we did to actually create content and share content, and they feed back. So, like we've seen today, lots of these pictures of an audience feeding back. Some of my colleagues in the Singapore office sent this over because I was saying, look, I think more people use mobile and trains than you do over there, but they sent back some shots saying, look at the connectivity in Singapore across these commuter trains. But all of this is old news now. As Alex kindly said, this is my 13th year in mobile, so it's a long time, and this change has been around for a long time. For a lot of my clients, it's like, well, what do I do about this change? How do I handle this change? I see it happening, but we're caught in the headlights. And part of the problem we have is that we're still just telling stories. We're applying the skill sets we've learned over the last, couple of decades. Or more so to where we are now. It's an old paradigm, and we're still convincing people to want things via storytelling. And what we should be doing is actually creating systems and solutions. We're actually not creative anymore. We think we're creative, but we're not. We're the wrong sort of creative. As I said, we're still creating narrative and stories. That often means we create narrative and stories to fit digital content, but we're not building systems and platforms that are creative. And that's going to be our future. We believe that's going to be the future. It's a Silicon Valley type creativity, And it's a discipline that we think is going to be very important for clients and agencies in the future. So we want to go from this paradigm shift, as I said, of making people want things to building things people want or things people want to adopt. And one of the challenges there is we've got to stop thinking about platforms and technology and tech. You see a client's eyes glaze over when you talk about technology. We've got to stop thinking about that as a technical function almost. We've got to think about this as actually our creative tools that we're going to use going forward, whether that's data, technology, ideas, innovation. And we almost need to abandon all the things that we know. We need to abandon the idea of coupons, skyscraper, double-edged spreads, 10-second spots, and start thinking again more in systems and ways. And this is really important to get through and get breakthrough with today's consumers. So our challenge is going to be to create platforms, invent systems, and build promotions around that, and campaigns that support it. Let's just clarify this again, campaign versus platform. Campaigns, regular outbound messages across a channel. Platforms, useful, serving the community, always on. So as I said before, we need to move from storytelling, where we broadcast a narrative that interrupts you, that tells people about things, to actually being useful, having things that people want to actually adopt. Utility, in a word. The blocks to this, from what I've seen with clients over the last 4 years at Havas, have been velocity, speed of change. So clients not coping with that, saying it's changing too fast, I don't understand it, I don't have the bandwidth or time to cope with this. Or even to put in the internal infrastructure in the company to cope with some of this change and where we should be heading. Another aspect is being transparency. A lot of clients will actually say, okay, I want you to go build something for me, and then we're going to unveil it. So we take them through a process, we'll say we don't want to do that. We want to actually have beta versions, we want to bring clients in, we want to bring third parties in to look at your idea and build this platform together and be open and transparent. For a lot of corporations, that's difficult. But customer feedback through any build process, through any ideation process, is highly valuable, and you can encourage a client to bring them in early in the process. You get much better results. What we are guaranteed for the future is disruption. So the things we're looking at today, all these platforms we're looking at today, the process is going to get faster and faster and faster. Computing processing power is getting faster. So the things we see now will be different in 3 years' time. We know that. So we're moving towards different methodologies to try and help our clients cope with disruption. So we saw Strikeout today talk about programmatic media buying, real-time bidding. It's completely disrupted the media industry. Suddenly you have computers bidding for media. The whole process and planning process has changed because of that. Now that's only one example. So one methodology we use is taken from system development, and it's just called Lean Startup. And we talk to clients about Lean a lot. And we talk to them about, when they come to saying, can you build me an app, a solution to a marketing problem, we start out from the point of testing hypotheses. Okay, we'd like to test 15 different things with you. I've only got the budget for one, what can we do with one? And then we have to change, we have to really work on their mindset about actually, it's not about building one solution, it's about testing lots of different things with customers and with your market to see what gains traction and where we can take it. Sometimes the chicken before the egg. And the hardest part is this part, is convincing clients to fail fast but continue to learn. So when you say to your client, can you go back to your boss and tell them this may not work, or these five little initiatives we're going to build and test may not work, it's a real difficult challenge. So you have to show them other companies that are doing this on a continual basis and say that this is where corporations are going. Really highly experimental approaches to solving problems. Not just technical builds, sometimes these are marketing problems, and ideas and ideation. The other mindset we have to work on is actually bringing customers in early into the process. So quite often involving a customer in the briefing of a problem, or more than one customer, to actually engage with that and actually together build a solution with the customer and your client in the room. And again, we often start without the end in sight. So iterative design, just piece by piece building of a solution, and small budgets being released. So it's it's a huge change of mindset. But the customer development cycle and the build cycle are very important working together. To formalise this at Habis and at Mobext, we created a thing called MoLab, and it's really just MoLab is a 3 to 5 day session with a client. We lock them into a room in a basement somewhere. They can't get out. There's no mobile phones allowed except for the one they're looking at for the build. All the idea generation. We bring in developers, we bring in customers, we bring in third parties to those sessions. And we really try and hammer out a number of hypotheses and solutions that we could develop with them over that time. And we may have a coder in the room, we may have a designer in the room actually, so we come up with a prototype that we can walk away with. And we usually do try and get to a prototype in that 3 to 5 days, so that the client can take a mobile handset to his peers and say, look, this is what we need to do, this is what I want to build, and this is the budget I need to do it. As I said before, we tell the client we're not the only ones doing this. MasterCard, now describe themselves as a tech firm, and actually build hundreds of prototypes a year. A high proliferation of prototypes. Tesco are the same, they have their own laboratory. One of my colleagues recently went to Marks and Spencer's, exactly the same. They've built their own lab, have their own team experimenting continuously on prototypes and builds and solutions to problems. This is so we've structured this. This will go to work. So we've actually set up these labs ourselves as part of Habis. So we have labs spread around the globe. And what we're doing with those labs is we are sharing knowledge, experimenting. So our idea for a prototype that might have failed in Argentina might be shared with our office in Indonesia. So as I said, here I just show you some of the guys in the offices and some of the apps or prototypes that they've developed for some of the clients. I just want to take you through a few. The critical thing around all of this is to build a minimal viable product. So we don't say to a client, we actually need a spend that's going to be almost a full app spend. We're just looking for how little can we build, how little can we test. So actually what I have on screen here is just the front page of a minimal viable product for Unilever. And it's what somebody discussed earlier. We were testing whether you could actually take a receipt and scan a receipt with optical character recognition and actually send it back to a database and mechanize the products. That's quite an important technical exercise for that client, because it's like if you do that and see and actually overcome the issues around that, we have something to really use going forward. So these are the sorts of things we're testing all the time with clients, either technical solutions or ideas. This is something we launched last week, which is Walk for Water, and it's an app, it's a charity app, and basically it's launched at the Cannes Advertising Festival, and the idea is if you walk 10,000 steps, then a donation is made to charity. An idea that came out of a MoLab session, which was built very quickly and launched to market very quickly. So these are some of the ideas. We were looking at scanning in store. So actually looking at a product, scanning the barcode, getting information about the product, and then looking at whether you could then buy that in bulk. And because you've now recorded and saved the wine that you tasted and was your favourite wine. To receipt recognition, so here we looked at insurance on mobile phones and using the IMEA number on the box and on the device, taking a snapshot of that and actually using the IMEA number to reduce claim time, so taking claims away from being on average 3 weeks down to 3 days by capturing that data on a mobile phone, and also speeding up the process for signing up for mobile insurance. Another idea that came out of as a prototype came out of one of the sessions was around roaming data. So actually travelling on city breaks, wanted to minimise roaming data charges, so downloading solutions that enable you to capture lots of city data before you left that will take you around a city and guide you around. We're launching this actual app next week. This is called Park Space. This is peer-to-peer rental of your drive space outside the front of your house. So if your space is empty all week, you can take this app, you can take a photograph of the space, you can upload it to this app, you can then rent out that space via this platform, or you can go into the app and rent out other people's parking spaces. And it's purely peer-to-peer, so people are exchanging rental spaces. And we've seen this work very successfully in the car market, where people will actually rent out cars on a peer-to-peer basis. So you're not using your car for 5 days of the week because you're commuting to London and you're on the train. You can rent the car out. It's fully insured on both sides. So peer-to-peer is a very interesting process for looking at solutions. Another solution, another idea that came out of one of the Mobext sessions was about upgrading to business class and first class at the very last minute when you're at the gate. So if that plane's about to take off, the value of those seats are lost. They're gone. So this was another idea that came out of the session about saying, what if you could actually have an app at the last minute when you're at the gate, and that allowed you to upgrade and have a code that you could use to take those seats at a discounted price. So that's one method we use, running labs with clients, locked away 3 to 5 days in a room, and third parties brought into the process. Another methodology we use is hackathons. I just wanted to show you one we ran recently called Swarm. So a hackathon is we invite developers, designers, thinkers, strategists from outside the agency to come in and work on client briefs. People not related to the problem at all. But they come in and they compete to actually develop a solution for that client, and there's a reward for doing that. So we decided to run one called Swarm, which was to engage younger people, university students, in the process of hackathons, and to actually get them to be more involved. Before I go on to that though, Facebook Like and Facebook Chat both came out of the hackathon process, inviting third parties to come in and develop ideas for rewards. So we ran Swarm, and Swarm was all about, you want to design the future of mobile. There's beer, there's apps. It was a 48-hour non-stop competition. So you actually you were given the brief on the morning, and then you were told, okay, deliver a prototype at the end of 48 hours. So people don't sleep; they work through the night and they come up with some interesting solutions. Because they were students, we gave them an unusual brief. Next page. So we told them to empower people to influence public discourse, improve their local community, and promote a better way of living. The prize was £2,000 cash for the best idea, and the runner-up received 3 mini iPads. So I won't show too much of these because the IP belongs to those students, but the winning idea was called Mo Media. So they developed a platform, and they decided that the British were the best in the world at moaning. And they were going to actually make a media out of moaning and give it a value. So they built a platform, and that platform was very interesting because what they did is they allowed you to discover people on a geographic basis who are around you who also have the same problem as to where you lived. So you could now actually see, okay, so 7 people around here are moaning about the same problem. What was smart about their solution was that you could then escalate that problem. So you could escalate that problem to local authority. They had a mechanism you could actually send your problem jointly by creating a petition to a local authority. You then had a calendar built against that petition. If there was no response from the local authority, it would then go to the MP. If the MP didn't respond in the timescale, then into the local journalist. So they're a very, very interesting platform for actually looking at a problem and coming up with a solution. What was nice here, they were fresh, they were young, they had no idea, they were completely open to technology and what it could do, and had lots and lots of, there were hundreds of ideas from this session, but this one was very interesting in the way they thought about escalation and how you could use this on a platform. And the runner-up came up with an idea called taxparency, all to do with council tax, and that was about having some voice as a community around how you spend some of the council tax, and in particular local initiatives. So they were actually using a platform to allow you to go in via an app and say, these are the things we'd like to see some of that tax used going forward. So this is the winning team. They got their £2,000, very, very happy. But as a way of introducing some young people who you might employ in the future into the hackathon process and actually solving real briefs, or in this case, pseudo briefs for clients. So the new model, agencies are moving towards creativity mixed with data, mixed with technology. And around that model, the most important things are sitting down and looking at insights, opportunities and products in particular platforms. So my final slide is this really, and it's to advertisers, and that's to enable your agencies, to deliver more value, to think outside. So if it's a media agency, give them the chance to think outside media, and to look at broader solutions, to give them the right engagement contribution throughout your organisation. Think of them as partners in ideation. Empower them to talk to your business at all levels from the very start. Change your criteria for agency selection. So don't think in silos. Think about, okay, who's bringing me the broadest solutions and the most open thought process. And your agency isn't there to create great narratives anymore, because that model's changing and it's going to change rapidly. It's there to create great digital experiences. Thank you very much.